625 budget hearing. At this time, the governing board of Creighton Elementary School District number 14 shall hold a public hearing to present the 2017-2018 Maintenance and Operation District Additional Assistance Budgets, allocation of monies related to the intended 1.06% teacher salary increase, and truth in taxation requirement in accordance with state statute and board policy. If you're on board docs, you can see where the link is for the proposed budget summary. And if you would like to submit a comment, please email governing_board@creightonschools.org. Is that all I need to do, Mr. Mays?
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Lewis, members of the executive team. It always feels very anticlimactic when we get to this point because we have so much voice and so many different independent groups that are working together to make recommendations related to budget. So it's funny as we get ready to do this presentation, I'm like, we've been talking about this since like October. But this is kind of, I guess, the moment we've all been waiting for, or maybe not waiting for, depending upon your perspective, where we can get to review. And I will not drum roll. I will introduce the smarter half of our team here, Dina Dumoulian, who's our now officially, as a couple of board meetings ago, Director of Finance. Is going to kind of help me walk you guys through the information that we have here this evening. So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we've been down a pretty long pathway, so reviewing where we've been and how we got to where we are is kind of important. As you recall, I think it was back in February, Meet and Confer Budget Advisory had sort of a joint recommendation, and this looks pretty clear and understandable. This is tiers of what we like to do if this much money rolls in, and those dollar amounts were really based upon the original recommendation that had come from the governor related to the budget and the other information that was available to us at the time. In the board updates, you probably saw that we had an emergency meeting with Budget Advisory, and we kind of came out with a different set of recommendations that I don't think anybody cared for as much, because what actually did come down the pipeline that we'll look at how it integrates into the budget really kind of broke us down to the only increase coming forward for our budget being that 1.06% state mandated one-time just this fiscal year, what they call the teacher increase. And so the recommendations that we see up here is basically the distillation of what came out of that meeting, a focus on clearly separating those dollars as a recommendation, and then the concern with the uncertainty of current year funding to make certain that we maintain the healthy carry forward, so we have that as a buffer against any surprises that may come up, since that's kind of new, uncharted territory for us, but would give us the breathing room to be able to make any adjustments forward for fiscal year 2019 instead of having to predict those, you know, what's going to happen in the future perfectly today. Some additional suggestions. Really the biggest one that came out of that, besides you probably have heard through communications, we're getting ready to do a day one ready task force to try to make sure our kids, get as many of our kids here day one, not just for capture of ADM, but so that way they have the maximum adventurous learning experience for the year, because it's what's best for our students as well. But then in addition to that, there's a lot of concern around the funds that had been allocated to make sure sports and after-school programs occur. And so recommendations had come forward related to that, as far as looking at bringing forward some fee schedules where families were chipping in and looking at some alternate funding sources as a way to adjust, and then tax credit campaign, and also looking at some grants. Yeah.
Maybe you'll address this, but I just wanted to clarify when this 1.06% teacher increase, like this one-time money, I think like it's still important to just be as clear on the language as possible. It's like kind of like a bonus, right?
Yeah, I mean,
the increase feels weird if it's not carried. It won't be in their paycheck next year. It's not our fault. Like it's basically a bonus or like an additional compensation for 1 year. Their next year's salary is not going to be based on this 1.06. Is that correct? Is that my understanding? That's my understanding. I want to check.
Yeah, and so the confusion is, and we'll talk about this a little bit in a moment, the confusion is because there's a lot of confusion. The way it was done is fairly convoluted, but the way that it's set up, it's only allocated, the appropriation was for a single year for 2018. So it really can't become a baseline to base future raises off of because there's no guarantee that those funds will continue to be there. The public-facing statement that was made was that the governor and the legislature said, well, they plan to, for 2019, to allocate again and to double that number, but that depends on what happens when they go back into the budget process again.
Okay. And so I know this is not necessarily part of this public hearing, so if it's not appropriate now, we'd still like to hear how are we communicating that with our staff? Because they should, like they'll hold us accountable, and our communication, like we know communication matters. So I just want to make sure that we're effectively communicating.
It was overtly discussed at the majority of the last budget advisory committee is what I understand.
Correct, yeah, as a matter of fact, you don't see it here in these suggestions because they were kind of operational pieces, but there was a lot of discussion around that communication piece, and some of those activities have early pieces of them have begun, but obviously with our teachers away for summer, the lion's share of that communication activity will need to happen in the fall.
Well, and what we did was we sent them an email saying, get ready for a video from the superintendent. I was going to send out a podcast to
Cool.
everyone.
Yeah.
Just to explain it as concretely as possible, as soon as we were crystal clear on who was identified, because the alienation of those not identified is problematic culturally, not only for our district, but for every district in the state, because the state has been explicit in the teachers who qualify for this and the teachers who do not qualify for this, whereas typically districts go, well, if most teachers qualify, then all teachers qualify. And with the budget shortfall, we're only going to be able to honor what the state identifies as the teachers who qualify. And that's a very difficult thing to explain because we're so used to saying, come one, come all.
Yeah, the default for Creighton has always been maximum inclusiveness, and because of the way this is set up, we're not in a position to be able to do.
Okay. Well, thanks for the communication.
Not there yet,
Yeah.
because we're still trying to minimize what we think is more damaging than helpful.
Right. Yeah, well, the last thing we want to do is share any information out that we find out turns out to be incorrect. And so, I'm going to read you a little something in a moment just so you get the sense it's not just us that's confused. It's, it's significantly broader than just Creighton. So which kind of takes us to this next slide, which is the budget challenges we had. We had a giant slide of budget challenges when we talked about the committee work. We've really distilled it down to two. I mean, all of them create challenges for putting a budget together, but the two real kind of hairy ones for us this year were the current year funding piece, because obviously that has a significant budget impact, and then the 1.06% teacher increase. And I left my prop behind. So this was shared with me. It came in from email from one of the groups we belong to, and it's basically an email that was blasted out to like a giant list of representatives at districts, trying to help get some clarity. And this was just Monday that this came out. So the 1.06% is a nightmare for HR and business departments. It will require us to obtain verified payroll information from school districts in and out of state for classroom teachers that are new to our district last year. The real insult is we can only guess this information for our proposed budget, and we'll have to amend the budgets in November. This will cost us money and time, when in the past the December amended budget was only required if a district was over budgeted by a certain amount. At least that is how I see it. Please ask other business and HR people how they interpret the law. So there's, a couple of pieces in there are incorrect. We know if it's out of state, it doesn't qualify. It's only teachers who taught in state last year. But you can see the amount of confusion that's out there. And so I just thought it was important for us to highlight that, because when we get that parroted back to us and we're trying to create as much clarity as we can in district, we need to be aware of the other factor that's coming into play is our teachers have friends who are teachers. A lot of my friends are teachers in other districts. I get calls all the time. Well, I heard this. Is this true? And so because there's so much confusion and misinformation out there, it makes it all the more important what Mr. Zaragoza spoke about, that we make sure that that communication is very, very clear. So assumptions really are the key to when you build a budget. What are you building the budget based on? Because you have to put the numbers together based on the future. And for us, in the past, that future was based on last year. Well, now the future is based on a number that we don't know. So our biggest assumption was looking at current year ADM and then trying to project forward an assumed decline based on the patterns that we've had in the past. And then we also had commissioned a demographic study. We had them come and present last year. We'll have an update for you in the fall on demographics, and so we were able to use that data as well to get a sense of, where are we at relative to the slowdown in our decline. Carry forward's another big piece, but obviously these budgets needed to be put together a couple of weeks ago. Our fiscal year ends June 30th, so we're working with 95% of the year closed out. And a big one that you will see represented as we move forward is the Proposition 123 one-time dollars. Those are still working their way through the system. As you recall, we spread that out over 3 years, and so that becomes kind of an inflation of what looks like carry forward, but some of that carry forward is earmarked for programs already. Then our maintenance and operations override. This is an interesting one. It's important to be aware that that is one that we can't adjust later. So if we project too low and the number that we could actually capture for our budget was higher, we lose access to those funds. So when we put that together, we included a safety margin. We may not be able to access all of those dollars, but we want to make sure that if they're available to us, that we do have the ability to access those dollars. And then the big one is the teacher eligibility for the 1.06% increase. That what we did is we looked at fiscal year 17 because that's what we're going to have to calculate against, but we had to use all the teachers we currently have. Where the shift will occur is in fiscal year 18, all of those teachers who are still with us, those numbers are correct, but any of the teachers that change out, that's where the shift in the budgetary dollars will end up being. So, and then this really doesn't play into fiscal year 18, but I just think it's important for us to keep our eye on and watch, well, how do we use our dollars? And because we don't have fiscal year 17 data back, we actually don't close fiscal year 17 for like another week. The fiscal year 16 Auditor General report is the only one we have that shows us our percentages. But you may get questions from our taxpayers, and I think it's important for us to have a sense of, how do we compare to the rest of the state? And really the two big ones here to kind of cue in on are administrative costs, because we hear that all the time. Your administrative, cut your administrative costs, cut your administrative costs. And if you look, for us, it's 10.1% of our budget. As we look at the state, they're at 10.4%. So we're right in below the state. I will tell you we're significantly lower than our peers, because when you look at the state, administrative costs vary pretty widely between urban and rural districts. And so urban tend to have higher administrative costs, and so we compare even better when you look compared to our peers. The oddity that always throws people off when they look at it is they go, well, wait a second, how come you're 48.3% instruction? Your peers are like 3% higher than you, and the state as a whole is 5% higher than you. And the answer to that is partially the unique makeup of all of our funding sources together, and partially the needs of our community. So if you're looking for an errant 5%, if you compare our total student support and instruction support of 18.3% to the statewide average of 13.9%, what you'll see is there's where the 5% differential is.
The orange and purple.
Yeah, the orange and purple, thank you. So those are still services that are going towards the classroom. It's not like they're not classroom-oriented services.
And so when you say student and instruction support, could you maybe just give me an example for each one, what exactly that is?
Yeah, so when we talk about instruction support, that's things like our TOAs that assist the teachers with their classroom instruction skill sets. So they might be coming in and doing coaching or helping to break down standards or working with a group of teachers who are trying to align things either vertically through grade levels or horizontally across curricular areas. The student support piece is really something more like a reading interventionist. And so by those descriptions, the other thing you can see, one of the other reasons our numbers tend to be higher there is because of the number of title dollars we receive. And because those dollars have to supplement and not supplant, we can't say, well, we're going to put a bunch more teachers in the classroom. We have to provide additional services with those dollars.
And this is the, what is it, the auditor general?
Auditor General.
Right. So that's their words, classroom dollars, non-classroom dollars.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the
No.
one thing I want to chase is supposedly the student support was going to get pushed into instruction support. We heard that like 3 years ago, and they kept telling us, oh yeah, that's going to happen in such and such fiscal year. But I don't understand why that hasn't happened yet, because there was a big push by the superintendent's groups to say, it's direct services to students, why isn't that considered class?
I mean, and
And really, they're all direct services to students, but we don't need to get in the weeds there. But yeah, and that's why I was confused. It seems like those two should be on the dark blue side,
well, the classroom, word classroom may be obsolete in the next in the next decade or so, because the word classroom is a very interesting choice of frame of narrative.
Jay, I was looking at the food service, and I see ours is a little bit higher than the normal state of Arizona, and I'm assuming that's because we had that big grant to do extra stuff. Is that right?
That's a piece of it. I mean, we've always had high funding for our food service, and we've
That's right,
always
higher
run in
funding.
excess balance. So
Okay.
when you're running in excess balance, you're expending those dollars to provide services to students. So, I mean, based on I think it was our last board meeting where we heard all the great things.
Yeah,
nutrition,
yeah, that's what I'm
and
thinking.
yeah.
That's what it
So
is.
normally that would concern me, because I go, well, this is odd, why are we so far out of whack? But knowing the range of services we're providing, it makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Great questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Dina to kind of walk you through what you saw at the end of fiscal year 17 for 17's budget and how it compares to 18.
Yeah, so just about 60 days ago, we covered all of this, and you will see our budget limits there, done in May for our revision 2. So our M&O budget, our general budget limit there was the 37,553,637. That's going to look very familiar on the next page. Our overall budget, 54,359,655. There's a little bit of a decrease there that you will see. A lot of that is due to our title funds, which have been decreasing year after year, and the amount of carryover has been decreasing year after year. So that's the big number that's going to jump out to you there. The very bottom is just broken out between M&O, our capital outlay, and then our total budget limits there. Yes. So now we're moving to the current one we're talking about this evening. Numbers look pretty familiar there. I'm going to go to the changes on the next one. You'll see that if you compare the revised to the proposed, it looks like great news. There's an increased budget there of $204,404. A couple things to remember is that that $195,404 is a total estimation on our part. That truly is the new money coming in for the 1.06 teacher increase. That 100,000 M&O override is exactly what Mr. Mann talked about earlier. We bumped that up just to make sure that we captured all the budget capacity we could find. We did discover that in some previous audits, we left a little bit of money on the table, and we're not going to do that this time. So we do have that bumped up. Without those two pieces in there, we would have been at our net reduction of 91,000, which is actually a little bit more of a decrease than we anticipated, but that's right in the ballpark of where we thought we would be. This is the new part on the budget forms that you'll see. This is trying to calculate exactly what that 1.06 increase is going to look like as far as new funding. So the assumptions we made here, again, we were working on current year numbers. We're looking at current teachers. We estimated that at least 10% of our teachers would not be eligible for the increase. So those numbers are taken into consideration there. As you work through everything, the bottom line is that we would anticipate, at least for this budget purpose, $194,505 new funding, new budget capacity.
And just to speak to Mr. Zaragos's point on that last slide, I don't know if that's the forms language of teacher salary
Yes.
increases.
That is the form saying.
This is taken directly from them.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It seems like, so it's important that we constantly define that it is, until permanently placed in the M&O baseline budget, it is a one-time bonus until it's permanently placed.
So if we move forward to our unrestricted capital budget limit, our revised number 2 figure is on there. It's actually increased for what we have for fiscal year 18. The largest piece of that, honestly, is with carry forward. So it's carry forward that's there on paper, but in actuality, it's already spent. We have construction in progress right now. We have renovations in progress right now. So the POs are open in this year. We don't anticipate them being finished by June 30th. We're aware of that. That money will carry forward, but then be expended very quickly in July. So that's some of that there. Also, you will remember at the last budget meeting when we presented, we did file the 15-915 to recapture some capital funds that were not captured on the 16 that we went after this year and have included that into this budget. Carry forward and one-time money. We are anticipating a $2.9 million carry forward to work with. As Mr. Mann described, we have about over 1 million of that already earmarked for things like our gifted program or marketing program. So that's basically expended in either fiscal year 18 or fiscal year 19. We also have some money in there for some of our benefit prepays. We do get some reduction in cost by prepaying some of our vendors, so we do take advantage of that because it's a cost savings to the district, but it does mean that you carry forward a little bit extra money. And then also just in anticipation of any unknowns or any fluctuations that we aren't expecting in student loss or the amount of teachers is on that current year.
So basically, I mean, what we're really looking at net is a $91,000 smaller budget that we have, in dollars to work with compared to last year. It's not that far off what our estimations were when we were talking earlier in the year about where we might land, given the 1.31% inflation increase, but then the offset of some of the additional costs and the loss of I want to say student count, but it's not student count, it's average daily membership numbers. So, and then obviously that carry forward, Dina just talked about, a lot of that's really earmarked for things already, but there is at least some carry forward in there to provide us with a healthy budget. If you were to look at that Auditor General's report further, one of the things that you would see as green is the fiscal health of the district. And so one of the ways that you keep that fiscal health is by making sure that you do have a carry forward balance, something in excess of 2%, and in this case, we're at about ballpark, probably about 4%, but that's because some of those earmarked dollars are budgeted in there as well. And then the additional unrestricted capital really isn't additional expendable monies because, as Dina mentioned, those dollars are basically already tied up in projects. Those projects are just rolling forward. So happy to answer any other questions you might have. The goal was to try to drill into some of the areas. The board has always expressed an interest in stewardship, so we've tried to drill into sort of those areas where it's like, what might you want to know to make sure that you're paying attention to, where the rub points are for budget.
Does anybody have any questions? Sorry. Like one of my students. All right? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your work. Okay. And
Budget hearing, I just call to like anyone in the public to make a comment.
is there anybody who wants to make a comment? All right. So we can just adjourn the meeting without a motion. Okay. So let's go ahead and adjourn the budget hearing. And that means, as soon as my computer works, we will start the regular meeting. And would James Diaz please lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Let the record show that all governing board members are present tonight. Dr. Lewis is here, members of cabinet. Dr. Peterson, of course, is in Mexico. Lucky. And that will bring me to the welcome statement. We want to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting and remind the audience of the request to address board cards that must be completed and submitted to the board secretary if they wish to speak to an agenda item. Board policy provides for 2 cards, white cards to be submitted in order to speak to an agenda item and blue cards to be submitted in order to speak during public comments. Policy also states there is a 5-minute maximum time limit per speaker. Through the open meeting law, board members are not allowed to address items that are not on the agenda. If you do not want to address the board but wish to give your comments in writing, you can do so on a goldenrod sheet, and all members will receive a copy. In 2 ways. Approval of the agenda.
Move the governing board approve the agenda as presented. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Adoption, so this is what we were just talking about. The adoption of the 2017-18 budgets pursuant to policy D. There's a motion.
The governing board adopt the total aggregate school district budget per ARS section 15905 for fiscal year 2017-18.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
And item 2C, the adoption of the 1.06% salary increase pursuant to the requirements of laws 2017. And there's a motion there as well.
The governing board adopt the 1.06% teacher bonus per the requirements of law 2017, chapter 305, section 33 for fiscal year 2017 to 2018.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. And that brings us to public comments, of which we have one with Miss Julie Frost. Please join us.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, cabinet members. My name is Julie Frost. I'm the principal at William Mackin School. My address is 2316 West Eagle Feather Road in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm speaking this evening to address the rumored closing of the library at our school. Let me start by saying that the library is not closing. It was never contemplated to be closed at all. I apologize for any misunderstanding or miscommunication of these facts. I take full responsibility. I am sorry for the extra work and public relations impact to the district, the board, and the superintendent. The actual intent was to eliminate the parapro position in the library and work with our volunteers and staff in order to have a plan moving forward so that our students would continue to have access to the library. This budgetary move was necessitated when our preliminary Title I budget came in about $30,000 less than it was the year before. There was a decrease. The reasons for the budget cut included reduced enrollment at Mackin and also the federal budget cuts. With the best interest of our students firmly in mind, our school carefully considered all of our options and came to the conclusion this is the best of the worst case scenario. On the other hand, Mackin is very blessed with wonderful parents, volunteers, and community members. An unintended consequence of this difficult decision is that the support from the community has resulted in generous funds being donated to help fund the library. Mackin's PTO is working closely with the fundraising group. Again, I apologize for the miscommunication.
Thank you, Ms. Frost. Okay, superintendent's report. Dr. Lewis, take it away.
Well, this is our last meeting for the 16-17 school year. Stop it.
Can I call a special meeting?
We want a special meeting in the next week or so. So
Still reserve the right.
thank you all for, that's okay, for your service. This is, I know, a volunteer job, and it took sometimes a big effort to get elected to be up here, and here you are serving away. So thank you for a wonderful school year. I am proud to talk about the fact that I am in touch with Dr. Peterson, who is in Querétaro, Mexico, estudiando español, to better connect with our Latino community as we work so hard in many, many ways to do all the time. There are 5 staff members there total, and it's just with great pride that you guys have supported this effort for our staff. Thank you all as a body on behalf of Creighton for helping us connect with our community. With the heat, we have had a record-breaking day today. And I will tell you, we have expressed tremendous concern in two specific areas, not only for ourselves, crawling from the car to the office or the office to the restaurant or whatever, but for our landscaping crew, anyone who's painting, anybody who's working outdoors. They're starting at dark 30 and trying to end by 9, sometimes if it's outdoors, and that's just reasonable. So we're making sure they've got adequate water in their pool. We also have students in summer school, and they are having the recess indoors. But I wanted to assure everyone that just like in the winters when we had to close for snow days, we're very mindful of the tough conditions right now. Now, on a positive note about summer school, while we were sadly narrowed in who we could serve at summer school, all of our third graders who were identified as struggling and not necessarily making the adequate progress in reading have passed our test, and all of our third graders are going to 4th grade. All of them. So that's the good news. And they end on Thursday. Is that their last day? Thursday. Yeah. So it's just been a huge success on so many levels. I know you want to talk, but you can't. Stop it. Yeah. You can make a comment later. So it's just good stuff. So we had a recent leadership retreat. We did get out of the heat. I took 32 of us up to Prescott, where we lived in, we called them cabins, where we shared them with some of our forest friends. Mammals. There were mammals. And what we did is we did a lot of the typical outdoor exercises that were trust building oriented, like the ropes course or archery, or we had to do a balance beam, and then art projects. And what was really amazing, and kayaking and canoeing, we had a chunk of our leadership who had never done anything like that. So we were modeling in every way we could the notion of adventurous learning while paralleling our strategic plan examination leadership with this brief little powerful potent book on the stress of organizational change. And what we rallied around was the notion of we're ready to take it up. And I'll tell you 2 basic mistakes organizations make when it comes to facing organizational change, and just 2, but there's 15 identified. One is choose your own pace. And the book says, no, the pace is happening around you, keep up. And that was a painful thing to hear because we're comforters and nurturers by nature. So we really did need to kind of buck up and face that one. And then I'll share one more with you. Assume caring management should keep you comfortable. And that was all like, well, duh, of course. But that was counterintuitive as well, because the experts are saying it could be the worst thing we do for our growth of an organization. Is how do you stay a little bit out of your comfort zone to be sure you're growing? So this book was hard for us, but we worked our way through it, and we tied it directly to the strategic plan and took ourselves to some uncomfortable places in Prescott, albeit cooler than Phoenix. So really successful leadership retreat. I was proud of everyone. And just an FYI, kudos to Dr. Lugo and team. We are down to only 12.5 openings to fill for the year. I know she's in panic mode about that. I'm elated. I think that number is phenomenal for the end of June, and with as tough as things are, I also want to thank you for your recruitment in terms of meeting the needs of our community with Spanish speakers, making sure that we reflect on who indeed is in our school district that connects with students like our community, and your filter is just amazing. Thank you for your excellent recruitment efforts. That's my report tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. That takes us to item 4B, which is governing board reports. Let's start with Carl. Do you have anything going on, Carl?
Just a couple comments. Nothing going on really. So I want to start by shouting out our CEA friends. A few years ago, they came to us and said, "Hey, you all should consider putting these videos of our board meetings. You all should put the cost." And we looked at some data. I think one of the data points that we looked at was not very many people are looking at that, or they access our records, and we passed on that. But I feel like even like we talked about the heat, even if very few people access it, it's important to have a public record of public conversations that impact our community. So I want to thank CEA for broadcasting our videos, and I think we maybe should consider that again. I think it's important. Not everyone can be here for these meetings. With that, I want to thank Ms. Julie Frost for coming and presenting and sharing the update on the Mackin Library. It's been weighing on me. I know it's been weighing on all of us. And more than like the PR or whatever those concerns are, like it's not good for kids. I do know that I actually got a couple calls from charter friends saying, hey, you can't let that library close. Like, parents choose your schools over our schools because of libraries. So I'm glad that we are managing to maintain a library. That's the right thing. And I know that as a district and as a governing team who prides ourselves on leading by equity, that shouldn't ever be a trade-off. We should always be putting the needs of our kids first and foremost. So I do know there's probably more work we need to do as a district to get the word out there on how we make decisions, what's happening. But I did want to, I guess, just come back to Ms. Ross and say thanks for setting the record straight, and looking forward to serving our kids the best we can. And with that, I am going to close my remarks.
Thank you, Carl. Ms. Young? Donna, do you have? Okay. Ms. Sexton Reeves, how about you? Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I forgot my glasses and I couldn't be able to read next time. So I also went through a leadership opportunity in Flagstaff, Arizona, not last weekend, but the weekend before. Darn, I wish it was right now. But that was the Arizona School Board Association Leadership Conference. And since I was the only one there, besides Hilda was there, that was nice. I thought I'd share information and documents that I received. Although I emailed some documents, I don't know if they got in the...
They're on board docs under the library.
They're on board docs? Okay. Great. Okay. So the big guest speaker was Dr. Carolyn Lukensmeyer from the National Institute for Civil Discourse. It was incredible. She has a program called Reviving Civility. It began after the Gabrielle Gifford shooting in Tucson, and they're starting a big campaign now in 4 states where they're wanting to change the way people talk to each other to a more civil tone. One of the 4 states is Arizona. You've all received, my fellow board members, you've all received 3 documents on this presentation, Reviving Civility. One was from ASBA attorney, Mr. Thomas? Yeah, Chris Thomas. And then the other 2 were from Carol Lukensmeyer. I think it's something that we may be interested as they have some teachers' tools that go with this program. The program is really great because it has steps to showing people how to talk to each other, especially if you're 2 people with very different points of view. Just to say it, say you're a Republican who voted for ex-president and you're a Democrat who voted for the other candidate, and especially right now because there is a lot of vitriol going on in the country as a whole. And bringing this down to the student level, to the classroom, I think would be a really great thing. So I would like to ask if you guys could take a chance, when you have a chance, to look at some of the documentations and maybe someday to have them come to Phoenix and do a presentation to the board, which they will do. They're located in Tucson, I believe. Okay, so that's on that one. And then also I saw a brief presentation on cost control. It was just, a vendor, but I just thought I'd bring it because 2 of the districts said how they saved a lot of money because they'll show you, they have a little thing there here that says, if we find nothing, you pay nothing. So that sounds good to me. So I'm going to give it to Dr. Lewis. So that was that. And then the other presentation was the A to F of the new accountability system. So this is the state accountability system that gives us A letter grades. I sent also a presentation to everybody from the PDF from this. From going to this session, there was a lot of data. It was quite mundane and very monotonous. Although I do say I understand a little bit more of how to look at the way they figure out our grading system than I did before. So I did learn something. I can't say I'm an expert on it, but I understand a little bit more. And you guys have the PDF also. And then the next one was taking leadership to the next level. And that basically, there's 3 people that were there who used to be board members and now they're in higher position. One was State Representative Michelle Udo, Tempe Councilwoman Robin Arredondo-Savage, and Verlin Jose, who's the Vice Chair to the Navajo Nation, or the Tohono Nation. And they just kind of give little anecdotes about there, which was kind of neat. I'm almost done. The next one was new state laws and policy updates. So this was stuff that Amy's been looking at at the state legislature. And there were way too many to list, and I'm not going to list them all, but you all have the PDF. And the next, we had a county meeting of the Arizona School Board Association, Maricopa County. We had a county meeting. And what was really neat about that, I was sharing with Dr. Lugo, is they had us all stand up and say what our district was and how many teachers we were short. And we weren't too bad, I mean, I have to admit, compared to some of the other districts. So, and it was neat because I had just found out like a couple of days earlier, so I was able to give an accurate answer for our district. So that was cool. And they also wanted to let you know, I wrote all over this, but I don't know if I gave you a copy of this. It doesn't really matter. It's a new campaign ASBA will be launching in September. And it's called Keep Education Local. And they have this little logo right here, Keep Education Local with them. So keep an eye out for that. That's all about that. And I also attended the joint meeting of the Black, Hispanic, Native American caucuses. Resolution 4, and this is probably one of the most important things that I came across. And you all might have come across this at the Equity Conference. I did not get to go because I was going to work, or I was working at the time. So this is resolution 4 of the Equity Conference, actually was this one. And I think you have this in your packet. And this is two-sided, and I just thought, it's something we can look at in the new year, because I know today is ending this year. And perhaps, and perhaps tailor it to Creighton School District's needs. But it's just really, I know we had talked about this kind of thing before, but it'd be really nice if I think we came up with a resolution also, and let our community know that we've come up with this too, or let the new community. I think it'd be really great. And then lastly, there's the Equity Challenge, which is also in your packet. And this is the one I think you've seen at the Equity Conference if you went to it. And this is from the president of the ASBA, Julie Bacon. She had come up with this, and a lot of the districts are signing on and doing the tasks in it. And I think it's a really great. And I'll probably be bugging y'all about this in the future or that kind of stuff. And that's it. Sorry it was so long, but it was a long conference.
Great, thank you so much. Ms. McSheffrey, now that you're here, finally.
I do not have anything tonight.
Nor do I. So that will take us to approval of consent.
Move the governing board approve consent A through L in accordance with policy DEDV-R.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All right. And our one and only, well, agenda item, 6A, approval of Creighton gifted scope and sequence. Dr. Dubin.
Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Lewis. Humbled to be here this evening on behalf of Dr. Peterson. As you know, she's studying abroad and enjoying time supporting our leaders, our learners during the exchange program and Get After It. I'm also representing the work of the gifted and talented steering committee and staff. I'm very pleased to be able to bring forward a representation of their work. There's been a tremendous amount of effort in coming around gifted and talented services in our district this year. So we're actually in the middle of the 6-year cycle of revising and reviewing our gifted and talented scope and sequence, but because of all the great work that's been done, we have revised that scope of work to bring it into alignment with the new vision and the advancements in the program, and we submit those for your review and approval this evening. I'll review them very, very quickly, and then I'll cede the floor for your discussion and questions. Any questions that I can't respond to, I will make something up off the top of my head quickly, just to deal with it, and then I'll work closely with Dr. Peterson upon her return. So, accomplishments from this year that are highlighted and reflected in our ongoing work and our document are as follows. We have established a district-wide gifted and talented steering committee and staff. These are ongoing changes that will support the growth of our program in future years. Our district-wide steering committee includes parents, students, and staff members. We've also developed a clear vision for gifted and talented programming that aligns to the Creighton School District strategic plan and goals. We've added 3 full-time gifted and talented education teachers on assignment through the utilization of Proposition 123 funds. We're now providing direct services to students, as well as quarterly opportunities for parent learning facilitated by our teachers on assignment. We also have updated the professional learning opportunities that are available to our gifted cluster teachers and all teachers who are working with our gifted and talented students. So that's the summary of changes. I'll step back and allow for your discussion and questions. Thank you.
First question, Dr. Dupin. I'm looking at the attachment with the program design for the scope and sequence. Yep. The indicators, like the middle column, are those like standard indicators for a gifted program? I like how this is laid out. I can follow clearly, and I like our district descriptions. I'm just curious where the indicators came from.
They're part of the form and the design that we create our responses under the district description. So this is a form that we use to sort of respond to the parameters established by the Department of Education.
Gotcha.
Also want to point out your document has changes. It should be highlighted either in grayscale or in color.
Does anybody have any other questions or clarifications for Dr. Dubin?
So for what it's worth, I shared with Dr. Lewis. I know, like on the identification and the correspondence, that language can often feel technical, and so I just wanted to encourage the communication to meet our families where they are, and of course always like operate with this orientation for customer service and partnership so that we are engaging our families exactly where they are and maximizing any interactions we have. That's it.
Thank you.
Less clinical, more friendly.
So one comment to follow up on that, just some feedback that I heard recently, the partnership with ASU that the gifted kids are going to this summer.
Physics camp?
Yes,
Yes.
sounds like it's awesome. The only negative feedback I got was, only one of the gifted kids, I think a couple more signed up for it, and the mom was just concerned that maybe it wasn't communicated, in time, or she wasn't sure how it got communicated, but she was just sad that other kids didn't have the opportunity to do it, or parents chose not to for whatever reason, because she said her son's having an amazing time, and it sounds like a great program, and I'm sure kids from other schools are attending as well, but
We'll definitely look into that and follow up.
Is there a motion?
Move the governing board approve the revised Creighton School District gifted scope and sequence to be used beginning the 2017-2018 school year.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Motion approved. Thank you. All right, anybody have any future agenda items that they would like to hand over to Hilda?
I do.
Oh, excellent.
Sorry.
Even better.
Okay, I kind of brought this up before, whereas I would like, on the promotional certificates in 8th grade going to 9th grade, to be listed the distinction of being bilingual, whether it's through the FLY program, whether it's through the heritage of the person's home life, whatever. I would like that to be put on the promotional certificate. And so that's the agenda item I'd like to bring up. And if all possible, I would like it to be brought to the board in the beginning of the school year so the principals have the time, the print shop has the time, and whatever. I feel as a school, we should honor everyone's heritage and accomplishments.
Excellent. Any other future agenda items?
I have one, and I know we just recently had a presentation about this, but we have a new junior masters, I'm not sure what the actual title is, but a new person there. So I would just like to see, I'd like to hear about what the future of that program holds. Are we going to continue to use EF tours, or are we going to try and do a school partnership that was done in the past? I'm just curious of what the plans are.
Excellent. Any other future agenda items?
I have 3, but I have one pending from last meeting, so I'm wondering if I should just wait and introduce them in the new year.
Yeah, no time like the present. Let's go ahead and do it now. That way we can start planning for when we're
Okay.
going to be able to do
Okay,
it.
I will. Okay, so one is the resolution for safe schools. The second one is the ASBA President's Equity Challenge. And the third one is the presentation to the board by the National Institute for Civil Discourse.
All right. Any others? There's a motion. All right. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Have a wonderful July, everybody.